bark off.
Right.
Telltale signs of a whitetail.
And they're starting to do that right now. Some of the preliminary rutting is starting to show up, but it'll still be another month.
Okay, well, here's one way to hunt them from a ground blind. Bow designer Phil Grable is demonstrating this. This is a little blind he made, put his feet into a hole so he can turn and look 360 degrees. But he's sitting within about 20 yards of a scrape and of a buck rub, hoping that buck is going to come back. Well, you know when a deer walks through the woods, Pete, there's an awful lot that it has to look for, but it has the advantage because it knows the woods like the back of its hand.
Right.
And, or hoof, should I say.
It's the thing you've got to remember. You're in their backyard, and they know it.
This is why bow hunters, generally, in this state it's legal now, prefer to hunt from a tree. There's some safety things. A bow hunter has to be safe. So in taking that bow and the arrows up the tree, which will be kind of cumbersome if you try to do it, crawl up there at the same time with your bow, tie a string from a high limb down and tie your bow onto that, and when you get to the top of your tree stand, pull it up. It's like Sam Grissom, he's a bow hunter from Howell, is demonstrating. Now we might say that right now, right off the bat, that the tree stand he's hunting from, this was filmed a few years ago up on Boblo Island. Tree stands like this, actually, according to the letter of the law, are illegal to hunt from.
That's right, Fred.
Why? Can you explain that?
It's a permanent stand. And the law states that you can hunt from a portable tree stand or scaffold. And this particular stand here is definitely permanent. It's nailed to the trees.
Now, this law has not been enforced. Actually, over the past few years, we can be honest about that. The DNR has not enforced it, but there's been pressure to crack down on it. So, bow hunters, take heed, especially on state land. Well, here we're going to another tree stand, a more luxurious model, which also is illegal to hunt from now. But it's by an apple orchard. Great place to hunt deer from, right?
Especially early in the season. The apples are just coming down, and deer activity is probably the heaviest that you find around apple orchards right this first couple weeks of the season.
Of course, we have a bumper crop of apples, so it should be good. Here, Phil Grable is, notice he's a left-hander?
Right. All the good bow hunters are
all
left-handed.
Of them?
Right.
I wonder if the bow hunter of the year is left-handed. You are?
It was the last time I looked.
Well, you are. Phil Grable is. He's a good bow hunter and archer. Fred Bear is left-handed.
Right.
Tom Jennings. It's amazing how many of the top bow hunters are left-handed. Well, Phil is looking around just as he gets up in the blind, scanning the landscape. You never can tell when a deer is going to come out. Sometimes when you're up in a tree, they're not necessarily looking up, and even if you're moving around, they could miss you. But hunting from a tree, I really enjoy. Of course, just because these permanent tree blinds with nails and wood in the tree are illegal doesn't mean you can't hunt from a tree, you know, from the crotch of a limb or something like that. I've done that several times. If you find the right kind of tree, that's very enjoyable. Well, Phil, you can see on his hand there, he had a half glove that keeps his hand warm as well as helps camouflage.
It darkens that hand because the hand is the one thing that moves when you come to that final shot. You have to move it back 20 inches or so. And if it's bright colored, the animals will spot it.
Nice thing about being up in a tree, you can just turn your head. Don't want to move your body too much and looking around. But, you know, shooting from a tree is different than shooting from the ground.
Right. You've got to remember all the time that the amount that the arrow drops is based upon the horizontal distance, not the vertical distance or the angle that it appears from your tree stand to the ground. But a lot of bow hunters shoot high because what their mind pictures is the long distance from the tree stand to the ground, and therefore they shoot for that distance. And actually the arrow only drops the amount that the horizontal distance is.
Well, here Phil is marking off to coincide with his sight pins on his bow, marking off 20 yards with a pile of apples. Oh, there, he found a little deer sign right there. Some pellets, meaning a deer has been feeding, leaving a trail. So Phil's going to go over to this apple tree, shake a few apples off onto the ground. But he's set out there, before he gets up there, he set out that pile of apples that was 20 yards away. And then for his 10-yard sight pin, he set that little piece of wood by that lichen on the ground. So he's going to get back up in the tree and take a few practice shots. This can be important, not just because of the distance and the angle, which can fool you sometimes, but shooting from a tree is a little bit different. You have to make sure your footing is secure and watch that shot a little bit above it.
Something that you should do whenever, whether you're in a tree or just a blind, you should always shoot from it to see where your bow limbs are going to be, where your arrow is. When you put that bow out in front of you, a lot of people in a blind don't realize that you have to have a good 2 feet of space between you and the blind, and when you get ready to shoot, you can't get the bow out because it's hitting the blind.
You rattle that branch, the deer will hear it, look up, see you,
and they're gone.
And they're gone, absolutely. But that's the way it's done. This is what a bow hunter is, a person who sits out in the blind, man or woman. There's a lot of good women bow hunters.
Yes.
And they enjoy this because it's such a beautiful time of the year to get out. Fantastic. You'll get out there in the morning. How early? I usually get out there maybe a half hour, 20 minutes before daylight.
Yeah, I try to get out there just before daylight at this time of year. Later in the year, when you're hunting scrapes or specifically for bucks, I like to get out there right at daylight to see what is there. I don't want to walk in on something and spook them out. I like to get in there with a possibility of still hunting in on top of something.
Oh, so you can see where you're walking
See
in.
where you're at and everything that's going on.
But those whitetails are cagey. That little spike buck's nose is working, ears are erect, eyes are sharp, much sharper than our senses.
Right.
It's a thrill, though, to get that close. When that deer is coming through the woods, remember, even if you're up in a tree, if you move, now if that hunter just moved his legs or his arms, you can see that silhouette perfectly.
Right.
So don't think just because you have the camouflage and you're in a tree that the deer can't see you. You scratch your nose and that deer will be gone.
Yeah. That's the advantage of being in a tree. The deer will still see you up there, but they don't readily associate it with danger immediately.
Plus, the visibility is great. You can sit up here and see deer farther away, which really is part of the thrill of bow hunting. I'd say very much a part of the thrill. If you just see a deer like that and you're close to it in the morning, you know, a lot of guys say that when you come back to camp. How many did you see?
Right.
You know, and that really helps make the hunt. And it's fun to watch him and be this close. A bow hunter gets a thrill out of that, being that close and having the camouflage work, the wind in your direction. Taking the shot and putting venison in the freezer, that's a bonus. It's really a bonus.
That's why there's 217 or 20,000 people that are taking place part of it right now.
A lot of bow hunters out there compared to how many there used to be. But this buck, a small one, takes off into the woods. That's a familiar sight, that old whitetail. But come here, Pete.
What most people see.
Talking about these permanent tree stands, I think some people are going to be distressed. Basically, the thing to do is to have a portable tree stand if you want to hunt from a tree.
Right. There's many models available. You can get them anywhere. You can make your own like this one right here.
Or buy one. This is the baker stand.
Right.
Gets you up in the tree. Tree steps, something you can put around the tree. There's chains. There's a screw-in type. All types. But this is how you get up into the blind, which might be, 20 feet up in the air. So this is what you need. And remember, also, important point, stands have to have your name on them.
Right. They have to have the name and address of the person using them.
Okay,
somewhere on the stand.
Just like tip-ups, duck blinds,
And
ice shanties. Okay,
Right.
So remember that, bow hunters. Let's talk about something now. You know, this problem that people don't understand what a bow hunter is. They think as hunters a lot of times just go out to kill, which isn't true at all.
Right.
I explored that with M.R. James. He's the editor of Bow Hunter magazine. So let's pursue that question, fish for the answer to that question. Well, you have a magazine that goes to, what, 150,000? Yeah, we're 200,000. Okay, I have a television show that has a big following here in Michigan among sportsmen. What can we do? What would you recommend I do? What are you going to do in your magazine to help?
I think we can set an example. I think you and I have to set an example. We've got to also get the message across to people that the primary responsibility in any bow hunting organization boils down to the individual. It's the individual's responsibility to be the type of bow hunter that he would want representing the sport.
And what is that? What are the problems within bow hunting that you see, or within hunting?
I think one of the big problems is the idea that you have to kill something to have a successful bow hunt. I think this is an obvious problem.
Is that a problem for who? Do bow hunters really feel that way?
I think that too many do, yeah. I think that bow hunting, killing, is a very insignificant part of bow hunting. It's 10% nationwide, if you're talking deer hunting, And I just cannot imagine people coming back from a hunt and saying, I had an unsuccessful hunt just because they didn't kill a deer.
Well, there's not too many that say that, though.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You hear that?
There are too many, especially beginners. And this is something I say, those of us who have been around a long time, I think we really have to get in there and preach to them. And preach is probably a bad word. But we've got to get the message across that there's a lot more to bow hunting than killing an animal. There's so many facets, and it's an individual sport. It's up to the individual to make the most out of it, whatever that may be.
Why do you hunt?
I hunt because basically I've always hunted. I grew up in a rural environment. We slaughtered our own cattle, our own hogs, our chickens, and this was before Colonel Sanders and company came around. So if we wanted a chicken dinner, we did it ourselves, so to speak. And I think people have gotten away from that. And I enjoy the challenge. I started hunting when I was, 8, 9, and I got away from the challenge of gun hunting. For me, there wasn't the challenge anymore. If I shot at an animal, and this is a big game animal or a small game animal, if I shot at an animal and it didn't drop, I was shocked. I was surprised.
You were that good?
No, I was shocked frequently.
Yeah.
But I'm saying I had that much confidence in myself. And
You just wanted a bigger challenge.
I developed into bow hunting because the first year I was within 18 yards to 20 yards of probably a dozen mature whitetail bucks, and I didn't get a shot. And with a gun, I could have had my choice, so to speak. And this turned me on. I got so enthusiastic that, I just can't preach enough about bow hunting. I love the sport. I think it's the most challenging hunting event there is, and until someone changes my mind, that's the attitude I'm going to keep.
You think there's a difference between hunting and shooting?
Oh, very definitely.
I mean, too many people, I think, feel that that hunters go out so they can shoot something.
There is a stage that hunters go through where they feel they have to shoot an arrow, they have to shoot a gun, they've got to shoot. That's part of it. There is a stage. I recognize that, but I feel that people outgrow that if they're serious about the sport, and I think that pretty soon they realize that there are these other elements involved. And it's hard to justify to some, say, spouse why you've invested hundreds or in some instances thousands of dollars on equipment and on a hunting trip and come back empty-handed. There's pressure from outside. Your peers say, hey, you got your deer yet? And guys say, no. There's nothing wrong with that. But so many people don't recognize that fact. And I think that's one of the problems we were talking about earlier.
I sure like to have a deer in the freezer, though.
You bet.
I mean, not to say I got a deer. I like to eat them.
I agree. I don't make any apologies about killing animals. And when I buy a license, the bottom line is I'm wanting to kill an animal. I'm wanting to get a deer. But I still feel that there's a lot more to it than that. There is so much more to it. And it's that whole outdoor experience. And that's all I can say. It might be hard to explain, but that's the way I feel.
Well, that was an interesting conversation I had with M.R. James. That was at the Bow Hunters Rendezvous, Pete. Nice job you did. You organized that baby and
thanks,
put it together. That was in August at the Eaton County Fairgrounds. We're going to have a lot of discussions like that up at Bow Camp. We're going to be doing a broadcast from up there. We'll go there in 2 weeks. You're going to be in Pennsylvania then.
Right.
Wow. Well, let's talk just for a second here about bow hunters, what M.R. James said. You think very many of them are meat hunters?
I don't think there's too many. There's probably a few that have got the sport down to where they feel efficient at it. But when you look at the statistics that we have from last season, we had 200,000 bow hunters roughly, and they killed 33,000 deer.
About 85% didn't
Right.
get anything.
But the interesting thing is it took them 3.5 million days of hunting to kill those 33
Right.
deer.
Bow hunters are dedicated, spending about 2 weeks average,
Right.
probably about 10, 12, 14 days in the woods, or parts of days anyway, mornings and evenings. Let's talk for a second about the shooting aspect of bow hunting. This is really archery, and it's a year-round type of sport that you can become involved in. The bow I'm using, I'm going back to this year, it's called a recurve. It's just a stick with a string. Now, the farther you pull a bow back like this, the more difficult it gets until you get it at full draw. But you are using the modern, mechanical type of bow.
Right. This is the modern day bow hunter's tool. It's a compound bow. It has pulleys and cables. And basically, it's the same as yours.
You hold it in your hand, you pull it with your fingers.
Right. You have to hold it with your own muscles when you get it back.
Well, show us what the advantage is. Knock an arrow in there. And you see, the thing is, I'm pulling a bow back that is about 45 pounds draw weight. And that's plenty for me when I get it at full draw. Pete's will be about 35 pounds draw weight when he gets it back. Now hold it, just before you do that, Pete, we want to look at the cables.
Okay.
This is a 70-pound bow, but watch what happens to the cables as he pulls it.
Okay, watch pulling.
As that turns over right there,
Right there.
that drops the draw weight back to 35 pounds, but when that arrow leaves, wow, almost got the apple. When that arrow left the bow, it was traveling with the velocity that a 70-pound bow would give it. Now this bow I'm using as a recurve, about 45-pound draw weight. Pete, you shoot one finger over the top, Mediterranean release. I learned 3 fingers under, which is some people are finding an advantage too. And I also anchor under my chin, well, right above the apple. I think the bow hunter of the year got a little closer than I did, as it should be. Okay, well, Pete, good demonstration. Ed Groves, why don't you come in here and tell us what's coming up this weekend other than bow season?
Well, we've got another season opening tomorrow and still another one on Saturday. Let's find out about it as we go to our outdoor calendar. A lot of anxious hunters will have a hard time getting to sleep tonight with the archery deer season opening tomorrow. As hunters take their position at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, we wish them a safe and a successful hunt. That 800 number at the bottom of your screen is a free line to the Michigan Travel Bureau for more information about any of the events listed on our calendar. The deadline for Hunter's Choice Deer Permits is tomorrow. Applications to the DNR must be postmarked no later than October 1st. The season opens tomorrow for raccoons statewide, for woodchuck in the northern Lower Peninsula, and for cottontails and snowshoes in the northern Lower Peninsula and UP. And good luck to waterfowlers as duck and goose season opens in the UP and northern Lower Peninsula on Saturday. Learn safe gun handling, first aid, and sportsmanship at the Bellevue Conservation Club when they hold a hunter safety training course. These courses are being held statewide in the weeks ahead. Check with your local club or the DNR for one near you. Pistol silhouette shoots are being held this weekend in Lapeer, Clare, and White Pigeon. Romance of the West is the title of a wildlife film that will be shown in Jackson on October 8th. Alan King of Gregory, Michigan tours with the film for the Audubon Society. Our Michigan Outdoors Deer Hunters Workshop looks to be a blockbuster of information. Held Saturday, October 9th at the Okemos High School just east of East Lansing. Join us to learn the secrets of better hunting. Next weekend, the Westland Beagle Club is holding a Michigan Small Pack Option Beagle Gun Dog Championship near Chesaning. And the Great Lakes Handgun Metallic Silhouette Association is holding a first annual Michigan Outdoors Family Celebrity Silhouette Super Shoot on October 30th and 31st at the Looking Glass River Sportsman's Club in Langsburg. All proceeds at the event will go towards the Michigan Outdoors Television Fund here at Michigan State University to help keep Michigan outdoors on Thursday nights. Thanks, silhouette shooters. We'll see you there. And that's the Michigan Outdoors Outdoor Calendar.
Attention deer hunters is what our poster says, our Michigan Outdoors poster here, which has a rundown of our all-day Deer Hunters Workshop on October 9th at Okemos High School, and is of our series of evening seminars with Leonard Lee Rue, the most published wildlife photographer in the country. These workshops, if you're a deer hunter, you enjoy wildlife, are really going to be something. In Okemos on October 9th, for example, we're going to have all kinds of exhibits and demonstrations, including for bow hunters. Floyd Eccleston will be there. He has the largest broadhead collection of arrowheads in the world. We'll have people there from Handgun Hunters International, from the muzzle loaders, from Safari Club, from commemorative bucks, measuring bucks. You're going to see trophy bucks there, people who know so much about hunting and deer behavior. Taxidermists will be there doing some demonstrations. Several taxidermists who specialize in deer heads, and these two deer heads will be there, along with Chris Hickson of Hickson Taxidermy and Canadian Lakes. He is mounting these two bucks for the DNR. They have their antlers locked, and that'll be there. Experts such as Richard P. Smith, who wrote the book Deer Hunting. He's from the Upper Peninsula. He's going to be there. People talking about techniques, hazards of deer hunting. What if you get lost? How to stay warm, first aid, avoiding firearms accidents. Maybe we can make it through a season with no firearm fatalities, hopefully. We're going to have a demonstration of field dressing deer. If you haven't seen that before and you want to prepare, also cutting up a deer at home. Actually see it, learn how to do it step by step, and Kay Ritchie will be giving tips on how to cook the different parts of venison. It's going to be a great all-day workshop. The man who is going to be at all of these, the evening seminars and the all-day workshop, is Leonard Lee Rue III. He's author of 14 books, including The Deer of North America, the Bible on deer behavior. And if you want to talk to a man about wildlife, talk to Len Rue. I had a discussion with him, and just listen to what he knows.
See, I'm still spending days upon days upon days. I mean, weeks upon weeks living with animals and birds and so forth right now, like the wild turkey. I hope sometime to have my turkey seminar done within the next year. And I'm spending just days on end watching, observing, photographing everything that these turkeys are doing from the time they hatch out right on through. And that's the number one thing, wildlife photography.
So if an aspiring wildlife photographer wants a tip from you, he has a choice of spending more time reading a book on cameras or reading a book on wildlife.
Go out and study the wildlife. You don't need to know that much about cameras, because I always say there's no one who takes as many pictures as I do and knows less about cameras. I know how to use them. I know what to do with them. I know what I need to do the job. And thank God I've been able to do the job. I am the most published wildlife photographer in North America and probably the entire world.
How many pictures do you have out every month?
I'm at a minimum of 50 different publications each and every month, because I work with 27 fish and game commissions. So.
He's not only known as probably the world's most published wildlife photographer, but he knows more about deer behavior than probably anybody else. Where can you see Leonard Lee Rue with his Michigan Outdoors specials? Well, on Monday, we're going to be at Multi Lakes Conservation Clubs. That's the 4th in Walled Lake. On Tuesday, Grand Rapids at Grand Valley State College. Wednesday, Waterford Mott High School. Thursday, we're going to be in Saginaw at Arthur Hill High School. Friday, Garden City, right down in the Detroit area at the O'Leary Performing Arts Center. Saturday, the all-day workshop in Okemos. And be sure to call this number right there at the bottom of your screen for information on these. Sunday afternoon will be in Mount Pleasant. So make sure, call that phone number if you want reservations, if you want information, or you want one of these posters. Well, Pete Squibb, Bow Hunter of the Year, appreciate you coming down here, talking to us about bow hunting. How does the season look? How does tomorrow's opener look?
Looks like a really good season. The deer throughout the state came through in really good shape this year. Northern part of the country where most of the deer are has as many deer as last year.
Great.
Farm country looks tremendous. So we expect to have the same kind of season that we had a year ago, which for the bow hunters was a record season.
I hope it's a little different this year. I hope I get a deer.
Yes, there's a lot of people that do.
I got to spend a little more time at it. So busy getting the show on the air last year. But that sounds great, Pete. But you know, bow hunting has so many traditions, like we talked about this evening. It isn't just shooting and archery, preparing camouflage, but up at deer camp, we have a tradition that's really a lot of fun. You know how we do that. You've been at some of our bow camps. This is going to be at Houghton Lake this year. But we have a tradition. Phil Grable right here is illustrating what happened when he missed a deer the day before. What we do, and this is kind of a fun thing for deer camp, is the person who missed the deer puts his or her hat on the bale of hay, of straw that we're practicing at, paces off the distance from which the deer was missed, and that following day at noon, Phil isn't too happy about this, everybody gets one shot at his hat from that distance. We have some hunters up at bow camp that have a few holes. They have that ventilated hat system, good for early season. But we're going to be broadcasting from bow camp. We're not going to be on the air next week. Michigan Outdoors is preempted because of a PBS special, but I hope to see you the week after that. We'll be at bow camp, and be sure to come out to one of our workshops. We'll see you.
Sometimes when the moon brings out the diamonds in the snow, and the stillness of the forest lies encased in Arctic cold, the wind might whisper through the trees, listen if you can, it tells you of the beauty in this state of Michigan.
Hi there, I'm Fred Trost. Usually, you see me on Michigan Outdoors at this time on Thursday nights, but this week, there's a PBS special that's broadcast on all of the stations live, so we won't be seen this evening. We will be back next week, though. Just wanted to make sure that you folks knew that, we're not on because we're out hunting and fishing. I'd like to be. As a matter of fact, don't need too much more practice, but join me next week right here on PBS for Michigan Outdoors.